seeing the difference on what their capital gains would look like under a Harris administration, or just what their tax bills look like, and where their money goes, they shift. That's my thought.
Can I respond to that, or do you want to just let another person go, Mojo? I'm just trying to respect the room because I want to respond to that.
Why don't you respond to that, and then let's get some other voices in here, because I do want to. There's some really smart people on the side.
I know that. I see them. But I'll just say this, and I'll make it quick. Yeah, you do have people leaving Wharton, and they know what's up, but the vast majority of people graduating out of these schools are just going to become teachers because they don't know how to practice what it is they majored in. And they're becoming teachers, and they're teaching the students, and they're influencing the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the scientists even, which is scary. But they're telling them, like, you got to be altruistic. You can't rise higher than the lowest person behind you. You can't do that. So everybody is kind of infected by these ideas. But these teachers, they're the main ones who go back and become professors. I'm one of them, but I'm not like them. And they're telling these students, Bernie Sanders was the right way. Socialism is the right way. That's the only way we'll fix this country, redistributing wealth. And so I think it's like, the last thing I'll say is like, maybe it's just an outsized majority of people who are coming out of all of these schools, from the Ivy League to the community college where I teach, where they're sending these students out into the world believing that you should eat the rich. I'll land right there.
I was just going to add something too. I think Abby's right. I do think that you do see a proponent of the students that come out of school, and as they maintain success, they start to see it. But I'm going to take it a step further and go back. I think that a lot of the nuclear family in this country has really been destroyed, and I think a lot of people, parents anymore, take the easy way out. It's much easier to drug your children, put them on meds to cope with anxieties, to handle behavioral problems. We as a society anymore, we don't teach our children how to cope with the fact that, guess what? Life is not always fair. Bad things happen to good people, just like bad things happen to bad people, and we've kind of shirked that responsibility because children don't do what you tell them to do. Children do what they see role modeled for them. And so I think it's kind of a call to, the homes of your children. Like, we know that the schools are like this. We know that the colleges are inundated with a lot of this socialist and Marxist thought process. We need to be teaching our children how to critically think. We need to be teaching our children how to challenge the status quo. We need to be prepping them and preparing them from a very young age to understand that, you work hard to obtain the things that you want. And I think there's just been a real breakdown there, and I think that that's what we're seeing societally now is, parents have gotten lazy.
If I may speak, since there's been a gap, as a professor at a community college, and I have tenure there now, one of my responsibilities is to look at some of the adjunct professors and make sure that they're abiding by the standards in the curriculum. Like, are they teaching the students to write 10,000 words? Are they ready to transfer to a UCLA or UC Berkeley, et cetera, et cetera? And I go and visit one professor. Please don't dox me about this because I'm just being upfront about it. I went and visited one professor's class, and he's playing video of Bernie Sanders. In his syllabus, he says he's an avowed socialist. He says this. This is what he says. And he's like, we need to get rid of Donald Trump. Kamala Harris isn't even the one for us. We should be voting for Bernie Sanders, and we should have socialism because capitalism is evil, it exploits the poor, et cetera, et cetera. This is what's in his syllabus. And these are first-year students. They're just coming out of high school, so most of them are 17 and 18 years old. And then I observed him for 1 hour. He proceeds to kind of dog walk them. He says, so why should we be against capitalism? And they're like, yeah, well, because capitalism is evil and we shouldn't do that and we should redistribute income. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but this is like the gist of what I'm trying to get at, for you guys. And I came away from it and I said, look, he did have them write a paper about it. He did have them look up resources online and find MLA documentation. So he was right for that. So he should not be fired. He should not be let go. But his political stance is, in my opinion, indoctrinating, because those students don't know how to challenge him. They don't know how to stand up and say, well, wait a minute. What happened with China? What happened with North Korea? He's not going to talk about that. That was nowhere in his lesson plan or his syllabus. So how do you even confront this shit?
Yeah, I think the common thread here is that there's a lot of activist teachers that are more interested in telling people what to think rather than teaching them how to think. And I think there should be just more attention brought to this fact. And by the way, parents, what are their responsibilities in this? When their kids are like, oh, hey, I'm about to finish high school, I can get into a university, sit down with them and talk to them about, like, okay, is this an institution of higher learning that's going to prepare you for a career and to help you, learn how to think better? Or is that an indoctrination camp that's going to poison your mind with a bunch of dog shit? I will say I'm very happy to see the current trend of people recognizing, by the way, when the left says that they want a refund for their fucking college education, they're even quietly acknowledging that the education's not worth anything, because if they were teaching them something valuable, they would have just paid off their fucking, their bills and went along, went down the road. I think the conversation now is that, no, we're not going to fucking pay off your debt. You're going to have to just make wiser decisions on what do you get out of a university education. We should also say shame on the generation of people that tried to convince everyone that they should go to college. Like the idea of telling a kid from an early age that, like, you're going to go to college, when that kid might be much better off going to a fucking trade school. And I think the way that we put all this out there that if you're going to be anything, you gotta go to a big university. I think that's horse shit, and I think that we got to blame the generation that made them.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to actually ask you a question as a professor, like you just stated, right? I'm just wondering, and kind of forgive me if this was part of your message, right? But I'm wondering, as a professor, do you think some of these, when you ask the question, why don't we see more of these graduates, the younger generation, as they reach 40, 50, why aren't they unsubscribing, unplugging from the matrix, so to speak, right? And I'm wondering, from your point of view, do you think that they're committed to these ideologies, this programming? Like, Mojo just pointed out, we have these teachers who are advocates, activists, I should say, these liberal activists on campus that are pumping these students with, in my opinion, these fringe ideologies, right? These folks that you speak of, these, the younger generation that are kind of growing up, well, they are grown now, but as they enter the workforce, and why aren't they thinking for themselves? These folks went to colleges where conservative voices were censored, and I wonder if there's an underlying fear that they have because they, their social circles might think the same, their family members might think the same. They're all kind of plugged into the same fringe mentality, right? And they've seen the backlash, the downside of what happens when you think for yourself, when you, as I like to state, unplug from the matrix. And so perhaps there's a fear for, they're afraid to think for themselves because they see the backlash that comes. You can be ostracized from your family, your social circle. I was just watching a Charlie Kirk video the other day. I forget what college campus he was on, but he was talking to a student a conservative student who got punched in the face by a liberal teacher over his conservative ideologies. I don't know what the student stated, but imagine that. You are on a college campus and the liberal teacher punches you in the face because you're a conservative. This is what these folks have grown up in. They're completely brainwashed. And I think and I'm wondering if you think part of the reason that they don't kind of start thinking for themselves and abandoning some of these ideologies is because of they're afraid.
I think that may have a lot to do with it. Before you go, Abby, I'll just respond to NY real quick. I think that does have a lot to do. It does has a lot to do with it. There's maybe me and maybe one or two other professors out of 50 professors on campus who are like, yo, if you want to come to office hours and talk more about this, because they're like, yo, I'm taking an ethnic studies class and it's telling me that America is evil, but you're telling me, Professor Gildish, that it don't happen like that. Like, it's not that America's evil, it's that America made mistakes. And they're trying to figure that out. Like, what do you mean America just made mistakes? I thought America was evil. Because that's what all the other professors and the high school teachers and the middle school teachers were telling me. And I'm like, yo, man, if you want to come holler at me, or a woman, if you want to come holler at me on office hours, we can talk about it. But, you know, a lot of them are afraid to do that. I've got like one or two students who will do that. But it's an uphill battle, and I'll just land there because I know other people want to get in and share their opinions. Go ahead.
I was just going to quickly say two things. One, I want to go back to the comment I made for all of you to remember back that you probably had some professors in college that were horrible or were coming from that ilk. And maybe your freshman, sophomore year, you were buying into it. We all had social causes. I mean, no matter what ages we are, we held signs and we had social causes. And then we just grow, we morph out of that. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is that I was in a situation a while back giving some money to my university, and I made a decision to do it as an endowment of a chair, meaning paying for a professor to come in and to teach, and a professor that came from a mindset that was completely the opposite of what Gildas is talking about. And I think you're seeing some of the people that pulled their money from the universities in the last couple of years, if they go back into endowments into the universities, it may be from that direction to try to change some of this teaching staff with financially supporting a different point of view. The last thing I want to say is, and there's article on this, and I could spam the chat with it, of Qatari money coming into, especially to the Ivy Leagues, and even to like Texas A&M and to other schools, and flooding those universities with the same thing I'm saying, endowing and putting money into teaching positions and chairs that are coming from where the Qataris were influencing and from their direction. And again, I'm just not saying this from my ass. There's just a lot of evidence, and there's congressional hearings on it. So that's the third thing.
I just want to quickly go back to something, Gildas. You made me think of something, right? As you submitted your last comment. And I think that's just it. These folks are learning things in school, right, in college, these liberal college campuses, that as they start to get out into the real world and navigating the world, they're noticing these things. A lot of these subjects, a lot of these thoughts that they were taught to believe were shared by the masses. They're learning some of the histories, some of the policies and politics and social structures and evolution of the world. They're getting out into the real world and learning some of this is not true. It's the opposite of what they've been taught. They've been lied to. And as they get older, they want to unlearn, some of the brainwashing, because they're realizing it doesn't align with their moral code, right? But it's hard to unlearn these things when you've been taught that the world is your enemy, and it's safer inside this bubble of hive mind kind of progressive fringe thinking. I don't know. That's not a question, sir, but you made me think of that, and I just wanted to share.
To give you some, and I really appreciate that and why, but just to give you some idea of like the kind of students I'm receiving as freshmen, I'm trying to teach them because we're reading Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, and part of that book gets into like space travel and should America fund space travel or should it fund poor people? And if we're sending money to NASA and not sending it to the poor, is that a problem or not? Now, most of the professors say that is a problem. They should not fund NASA. They should fund welfare and Social Security with that extra money. But then I had a student speak up to me, and he was a Crip too, black man. He says, I heard the moon landing was fake. And I'm like, God damn, like, I don't even know where to begin with you then, man. Like, the moon landing is fake? That's how you're coming into the classroom? Now, you may think, oh, well, the moon landing has nothing to do with the economy and all of that shit. But they have this notion coming into the classroom that they've been taught from high school and middle school that, no, America is a piece of shit. America doesn't know what the fuck it's talking about. And my feelings tell me more about what's true than what the facts of history are. So I gotta deal with that kind of shit alongside other students who were like, no, I believe in the moon landing. It was true, like, whatever. So you're trying to walk this fine line between not undermining a student's assumptions. Okay, you believe the moon landing was fake, I hear you. But if I crashed out on him and was like, nigga, you don't know shit. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mojo, for saying that word. If I said, young student, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You never read any of this shit. You never looked at a documentary or anything. You don't even know anything about astronomy because you weren't taught that because you were politicized to get here. They'll be like, nah, man, Gildas is a bad professor because he didn't let my opinion have full sway in the classroom discussion.
Gildas, pause.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to encourage everyone, because we got a lot of people on the stage. Let's keep the shares very short, very concise. Make 1 point, maybe 2 points. There's no reason to turn these into individual TED Talks. I think you guys have done a great job of furthering the conversation. I think you have done a great job of not interrupting each other. But the last step of this is to keep the shares short. I will also point people to the link that I shared to the Heterodox Academy. This is a group of people that's made up of folks that are left, right, and center that believe in all of what we're talking about, which is that these college campuses, instead of being indoctrination camps, they should be challenged to allow students to ask different questions and to challenge the orthodox thinking that there's only one right answer. Like this idea that, on a college campus like this, this Rawlsian thing that's kind of poisoned people's minds on campus. I think if you have kids that are in college or going to college, take a look at this link and show it to them. Tell them that this is, if they really want to get involved, they can even start student groups on their campuses. This is for faculty. This is for administrators. It's for the teachers themselves. It's also for the students. And so if you know anybody that's involved in education at all, Jogi, I'm glad you're here. Hopefully you can share this in the communities that you're in. But everybody should at least take a look at it. Let's get back to the conversation. Gildas, wrap up what you were saying, and then we'll get the conversation.
And I'll wrap it up with this one question. Everyone on this stage, if you were teaching students and one of your black students, and I'm a black man, one of your black students raised his or her hand and said, I heard that the slave trade was a myth, and that's just what they tell us to make us oppressed. How would you respond?
Well, an obvious answer. The obvious answer, of course, is not a myth. So let's go on to the conversation. Why would you even bring that up.
Well, hold on. I think hold on. I think the reason he brought that up is the point he's making, and he's making it in a colorful way, is that there's certain outlandish things that colleges can declare as like, oh, this is true, which could be completely ahistorical. But then if you were to mention other things, being completely, if you were to raise the question like that he just did, to try to teach that, there would be an outrage. And I think that the point is that the expectation we should have from these institutions is, if you teach math, teach math. If you teach science, teach science. If you are teaching history, how about, if there are historians that disagree, why not flag that in the conversation rather than simply bringing your own viewpoint into a classroom and saying, because this is what a lot of professors will do, is they will grade people on their understanding of history. In fact, we had a great conversation the other night about the 27th Amendment, and there was the 27th Amendment was something that was brought up and 200 years ago didn't get ratified, and this young man at 19 years old was at the University of Texas and challenged in the classroom, hey, why don't we bring up the 27th Amendment and we could, cause Congress to not be able to give themselves a pay raise, and he told his professor, this is something that, it's not dead constitutionally. This is a live amendment that just never got ratified. Let's bring it back up. That teacher gave that student a C on their paper, saying that they didn't understand the Constitution. That young man took that argument, put it out there in the ether, and Congress people and other scholars picked it up and said, he's right, and they brought it back up, and the 27th Amendment got passed 200 years later, and this is where teachers that are activist types, or just know-it-alls in general, are not opening up the conversation. I think that was Gildas's point, but he wanted to do it in a provocative way. But I want to get some other voices in here. We got Johnny that's here that understands the English language better than anybody. We got David, who I haven't seen in a while. He's got a pink ticket that he'll probably need to cash in at some point. We got Anson, that if anybody wants to know, about the military, if that topic comes up, there's nobody more educated. Lots of fucking cool people, even in the audience. We got the brilliant Roya. We've got Randy, Darren. We got a goo. We got Allie, who I won't tell you who Allie is. I think that's a burner account for somebody else with a name that rhymes with her. And then there's MGK. Yeah, we got an all-star goo. We got Bree with a pink ticket sitting in the goo. I don't know what that's all about. Bree comes to his room. She knows how to cash in a ticket. Beaver knows how to cash in a fucking ticket. Anyways, let's keep the conversation going. Who wants to?
I'd like to jump in really quick. The 4th of July and Thomas Paine, the clear architect of the Declaration of Independence, where we the people can govern ourselves. How amazing is that? He came up with that. They say it's Jefferson. Of course it's not. Read it. The original drafts. I got like low battery here. I'm on this river here. I'm ready to die out. But Thomas Paine, the father of democracy. Read him. Let's study him and realize that we the people are in a desperate situation where we can be in charge. He wrote about it back in 1776, and it's crazy that they even said Jefferson wrote it. God loved Jefferson. I'm not saying anything bad about him, but Thomas Paine wrote the Declaration of Independence, African slavery in America, common sense, rights of man, age of reason, so many awesome...
Agrarian justice.
Yeah, baby. I love it. And why aren't we talking about him? That's what blows
Mark, do me this favor. Go start a fucking house called Thomas Paine, and what we will... No, I'm being dead serious. Start a house called Thomas Paine, and we will pick a book, and we will start a clubhouse book club, and you will you will lead the discussion on the book club. You're creating a clubhouse house for the purpose of a book club, and if you don't do it, then you can't say that we should talk about it. I'm telling you, I'm encouraging you to put this out there. I think Thomas Paine's one of the most interesting figures. He was an abolitionist before it was cool. Thomas Paine is one of the most important voices, and by the way, not just in the American Revolution, in the French Revolution as well. And I don't think enough people know about Thomas Paine. I think we should study him. We should talk about what we agree with, what we disagree with. Here's the other thing. Thomas Paine, when he died, because he was a deist, because he didn't believe in the same thing the Protestants believed in, nobody came to his fucking funeral. This guy was on a fucking island. He was one of the most influential people in the American Revolution, and people, his peers that benefited from the work that he did. His work in writing Common Sense is why we had a revolution. It's why we won a revolution. And then they tossed him away because they didn't agree with his religious views. They didn't even come to his fucking funeral.
Mojo, you're the bomb. I'll work on that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure.
I love what you just said. Thank you.
Dude, we got an all-star cast. We got El Normo in the building. For those of you guys who don't know El Normo, follow this man. Follow El Normo. I voted for him for president. He's the last liberal in America. He is. I genuinely believe he's the last liberal in America. And for those of you that always say that liberals are bad, follow El Normo. You'll find out that liberals are not just good; they're right about most things. And you'll also find the difference between liberals and progressives if you follow El Normo.
El Normo is a fascist.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's keep the conversation going. Why we had a break? Oh, hold on, David. Why we had a break? Matt, could you post in the chat a link to your house? I think that it's important to promote houses that are doing good rooms. Matt had a room the other night, him and his fellow mods in there, which included Sarah, which included Joe Hero, Ann Hero. They had one of the best rooms that this all year long, and so I would definitely follow his, join his house and follow Matt. So Matt, if you could put that in the chat, that'd be great. But David, go ahead.
Yeah, so the topic of this room is reclaiming our universities. Is that right? Like, from what I understand.
Well,
like reclaiming.
That's where we went was talking about, you know, the failures of the university. So yeah, I would love to get your.
Yeah, so like, you know, recently I think there's a new law, right, which specifically states that biological men cannot compete in women's sports, and also that you can't cut off the genitals of children, and then also, like, you know, but the point that's kind of being happening is that people can make up a million different crazy stupid things, and we'll have to write a million different laws constantly to address this thing and that thing. No, you can't have sex with your dog. You can't do this. You can't do that. And at a certain point, you know, when, you know, I also want to give. We also have to respect our enemy. What they did to overtake the universities and the public schools, K through 12, primarily just focusing on the high school and colleges, they didn't quit year after year. Like, in other words, this was a multi-decade effort going back from the 50s. I think you had a discussion topic a few months ago about the Frankfurt School, and we didn't know exactly who we saved during World War II and the Holocaust. We thought we were saving a bunch of prestigious intellectuals from Germany, and we didn't know that we were importing deconstructionists. And I think that the effort that they take, they go through every single school, every single chair, every single administrator, year by year, and they talk about it, and it's a program. So what we're doing today on the stage is what they've been doing every single year before we were born. And I think that this is why we have to respect the enemy, because you can't understand the level of concerted effort of why our children are so ideologically captured. We cannot begin to comprehend the scale of it unless we understand the effort that went into it on there.
Damn right, John.
They are brainwashing the college students. The high school students are brainwashed and primed. And when they get to college, it's the finishing school of the brainwashing. I know many of us probably went to college maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and maybe you still had like weird professors who were like, no, you know, I'm kind of a conservative, and maybe you liked him, maybe you liked her, or you didn't. But what's going on in these schools right now, dude, I have to be a fucking secret agent at my job. If they heard what I said on this app, they would be like, oh, hell nah, Gildas is out of here. But I just teach grammar.
Gildas, if they were here the other night, they heard your bastardization of what capitalism is. They'd ask you to read Wealth of Nations.
Well, you know, we can always disagree about that, but at least we're having that conversation. Whereas in the schools today, they're not having a conversation about Wealth of Nations. That book is buried underneath the fucking stacks, and nobody ever wants to read that again in the schools in California. In California, what they're reading, how I got promoted to become a tenured professor was by reading, what's that motherfucker's name? Paulo Freire, whatever, however you pronounce it. When I wrote my criticism of that book, they said, okay, he gets promotion to tenure, because I said that he's right about a lot of things, but he should not just say that the students have nothing to offer. That's my biggest critique of Paulo Freire. He said the students don't have anything to offer, and I said the students do. And so they were like, okay, all right, you know, you can hang with us, so we'll give you tenure. But if I were to try to bring up Von Mises or Ayn Rand or de Tocqueville or anything like that, I would have never been given tenure. They would have been like, we didn't even read that shit, and we don't want to hear that shit.
I think they just using our system, and if we wanna battle them, we have to compromise our system. America became America because of all the things that you guys don't like. If we change it, America won't be America. For example, according to Constitution, I can create a ACPAC, American Chinese Public Affairs Committee, and lobby communist ideas in the Congress.
Well, again, I will just say, man, like, you definitely have socialist professors even at the community college level, man, to say nothing of Berkeley or Harvard. And if we don't, I mean, maybe UT Austin is doing a good job, maybe University of Chicago is doing a good job, but dog, at this point, we're behind enemy lines. You cannot tell these students that oppression is not the theme of America. America's theme is oppression, racial oppression, gender oppression, etc., etc. They don't even want to hear a different idea, maybe one or two of them, but as they're being churned out to become voters, that's why you got Imam Donnie in New York getting where he's getting. Now, I hope that it doesn't come to that, but if you elect a Democrat socialist to run New York City, I mean, that's very telling of the educational
Gildas.
Yeah.
I think him winning the Democratic primary is the biggest gift that capitalists could ever get. There's a lot of people within the Democratic Party that like to play this game that they're not socialists. In fact, Joe Biden has gotten on stages and said that he was a capitalist, which is laughable. I think this is a very good thing that's happened because it allows them to put the label on themselves so that you don't, because if you say that the Democrats are a bunch of goddamn socialists, which is what they are, if you say that, by the way, there's a lot of socialists within the Republican Party too, so don't think you're getting away without the smoke. But one is clearly worse than the other. And I think this is a gift because now they won't be able to hide from it. And if he wins, while it will be painful, it will also be a gift because it will show New York City will be a use case to show what socialist policies will do to a city. And if he wins, I will give you a list of predictions of things that will happen. And then when they come to pass, you guys will realize that they don't call me Rod Stradamus for nothing. I see these things. I sit on I sit on the mountaintop and I look at these things and I call them out before you guys see them. If you guys remember before the election when everybody was panicked, thinking that Kamala Harris was going to win, I said, calm your tits. Not only is Trump going to win, he's going to win in a landslide. By the way, I wasn't a Trump supporter, didn't vote for Trump, but I will tell you what's going to happen. I do think this guy's going to lose the mayor election, but it's a gift, and Republicans should own this gift, and they should use this gift, and they should say, look, you guys are a bunch of goddamn socialists. If he fucking wins, it becomes a use case. And again, it will be painful. A lot of New Yorkers will leave. A lot of businesses will leave. And New York City will be in trouble for a period of time. And then what will happen is the pendulum will swing back, and New York City will become a great city again. New York City will rise again, regardless of what happened.
Yeah, but that is what I hope for. That is exactly what I hope for. I hope that New York City is resilient enough, and I do believe it is, to endure maybe 4 or 5 years of a socialist mayor, just so that they can see. But I'm not an accelerationist where they want to just see these things happen just so we can finally understand. I think in the midst of doing that, you lose so much ground, you lose so much time. I don't want us to just play with socialism so that we can all get to see what socialism does. I think we should appeal to the rational aspect of men and women to say, no, we don't even have to go down that plane. But if that's what it is what it is.
All right, I want to push back a little bit on this idea of let them see what exactly this is. The neocon response in the 1990s was absolutely terrible. They had no answer, and this was stemming back after the Holocaust. The main question that was posed to the college institutions and the intellectual class was, how could a Christian nation produce a Holocaust? That was basically the wedge question. And America, whether if it's indeed a Christian nation, could produce another Holocaust. Germany did. And so the failure for a coherent, cogent response from anyone since the 1950s, including the church, meant that American conservatism was essentially dead in the water. And by the time the civil rights happened, and then to top it off, with the neocon movement in the 90s or the 2000s, which was a complete, absolute failure, you could Nostradamus that, of course, the liberals will get to say and predict and teach any single thing they want and do everything they want to do. And that was a rational outcome. There's a guy named Sam Francis, who you should take a look at. He passed away in 2016. He's kind of an asshole, but he's actually, his premises are largely correct. But I want to say that this mayor guy, Zoran or whatever, he's essentially sort of like a fill-in figure, like the way that the neocons were. Terrible, this is not going to work out. But the problem is that unless our answer is, oh, look how terrible this is, that's not going to be the right thing. And the problem is with the Conservative Party, they consistently have never had a proper ideological and coherent response, with the exception of Donald Trump. Everyone else has been, in fact, like you correctly stated, Roger, is basically quasi-socialist, whether they want to admit it or not. And you know, they gave so much moral ground. I still don't see a proper response coming. Even if we see the mayor win and New York goes down a socialist shithole with the way we know it's going to do, pointing at that is not a viable strategy. I mean, the Democrats thought they could do that kind of thing, and that doesn't work.
Well, let me ask you this, David. David, let me ask you this. So you got some pretty strong opinions on it. So I'll ask you a couple questions. What are you doing to help those in New York, you know, make sure that he doesn't get elected? Are you donating your time? Are you donating your money? What is it that you're doing personally?
No. The indoctrination is on another level, Roger. Like, that's why you think that you can do something. That's the problem. You don't understand that indoctrination happened since these people went to high school, and it's in the movies and the TV they watch.
I think you missed my question. I understand that indoctrination.
What am I doing?
Hold on.
No, you can't do anything. You can't beat it. You're
Okay,
wasting your time.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you've taken a defeatist attitude. So I'm going to tell you
I
that.
haven't taken the defeatist attitude.
Well, of course you have. You said that you can't do anything about it, and I'm here to tell you that you can. Elections do matter. Elections do matter, and people that throw in the towel, like yourself, that say you can't do anything, you are part of the problem.
Actually, no, I'm not. I would actually put forth new amendments, specifically like the Alien and Sedition Act, the Communist Control Act, and I would also enforce, like, selectively, like, go back and reinterpret what the First Amendment actually covers, and the way it's used, as well as a clarification for the separation of church and state, which is not what people think it means. At all. If you do any amount of research on the term, you just go to the Wikipedia page. It's the complete opposite. So I think there are a number of things that can be done, but it's not going to be, I'm recognizing that when you think that you can talk or vote your way out of this and convince people, the people have already demonstrated that they'll fall for anything. So, you know, trying to, you know, convince them better, that's not going to work.
Got it. So, okay, thanks for proving my point. You've thrown in the towel.
I'd like to be the next.
All right. Well, hey, you've got the stage. Make it concise.
Okay, good. So I think David talked about we need to understand the enemy, right? So who is the enemy, right? Iran think that the US is the big Satan and Israel is the small Satan. So the question is Iran...
hold on. Dave. We're not talking about Iran. We're talking about...
No, I'm getting that. The question is, how much you know about the enemy and what strategy is doing it right now to the college student and those people that voting for the mayor in U.S. New York. So is it the same strategy they used to defeat to fight Israel? The same strategy right now being used in U.S.
Let me just say, this will be the last fucking speaker that goes off topic. From now on, if you're off topic, I'm just gonna move you to the fucking goo.
No,
I don't know if I can make that any clearer.
No.
Okay, all right, well, let's go. Since he doesn't fucking understand that we're gonna stay on topic. don't test my patience today. I'm a little fucking cranky. They canceled the fireworks show. I'm fucking a little irritated. So, anyways.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak about Zoran. I don't know much about the guy because I haven't kept up with the New York mayor election, but I think it speaks a lot with the Democratic Party, the fact that they are wanting to get Andrew, they're wanting to, vote against Andrew Cuomo. I mean, granted, New York is the most progressive state or city in the country, arguably. So, I mean, it does speak a lot to the fact that, people are voting that the Democratic Party could have potential for change. Not necessarily what I want, but it does speak a lot to the volumes that they're sick of, the corporations and the Democratic.
Yeah, they compare this new guy with the previous guy, and that's why they vote for whoever, socialist, whatever, but the previous guy is worse.
Can I ask a question? Someone have the number? Necro, in your theory, how many people voted in this primary versus the registered voters in the city of New York?
I don't know. Like I said,
I think you have to look at that number because it was a very small turnout, and I don't think this is reflectiveness. Let's pray it's not reflective of the entire electorate in the city of New York, but I think based on the population and who's registered to vote, it was a small election. Devastating the what occurred, but I don't think it may not be necessarily reflective in a general the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible. I mean, I don't know too much about the the case, but I mean, to me, like I said, it doesn't surprise me so much that New York, out of all places, would have the chances of doing that. But like I said, it's like given that is the case, could you not see essentially why people though in a a city that's arguably the most progressive would have wanted to vote for someone like Manzani, or I can't remember his name, over Cuomo.
Well, yeah, I can, except that again, just look at it from a political science perspective. You have a lot more in the electorate. You have a lot of, around the country, a huge trend of people registering independent and not picking a party. And remember, this election was a primary for those that are registered Democrat, and you've had an exodus into this independent line. So I think you have to, again, pay attention to the numbers and then the demographic on who voted, which was they got the youth out to vote. In a general, it may be very different.
Yeah, I mean,
because if you look at what happened in the UK and Germany, right? The UK has over 29 mayors that are Muslim, right? That are Muslim/communist, right? And so there is a direction that's happening. I think that one thing that could be done is just by executive order is just have it removed.
I just think really, sorry to interrupt, but to me, the thing that Republicans should not do, in my opinion, if they want to win over particularly people like the young vote, but even just most voters in general, is just to cry communists or things like that, because essentially, I don't see that as any different from the left or the Democrats using Nazi or using the term fascist, because essentially it's it's lost a lot of its meaning essentially, and the only thing
he's openly about that. No, he's openly admitted this, right? So he's definitely an admitted socialist, openly, he literally will. If you ask him, he will say that. So I don't think there's any kind of issue about labeling.
Right, but
he also said he's going to arrest the Prime Minister of Israel if he comes into the city, even if he comes to the United Nations, which he would have diplomatic immunity. He's also made that statement very clear.
He's not going to get past the fucking State Department and his secret, I guess their equivalent of the Secret Service.
Yeah, I guess really just my point is that, like, to me, it just seems like, I mean, even if it doesn't matter if what he says is true, it just seems to be like a matter of, you know, it kind of reminded me, like, when I saw the debate between Bernie and Lindsey Graham that happened on Fox News, and regardless of which side you stand on, it's just like, you know, he made all these accusations about, like, Graham. One of the things he made that I just saw is, like, one of the reasons why people like him are rhetorically ineffective is because he didn't talk about any of the issues that were, like, relevant to voters. He talked about saying that Bernie supported, you know, defund the police, which is not true, but regardless, even if he did, it didn't engage with any of, like, the positions that people were concerned about, which is, like, to me, I think is ineffective for any person who is engaging in politics.
Well, he said he wanted to tax, like, white neighborhoods more or some stupid shit. It was, he said a few things.
Bernie Sanders said,
When he said it,
people.
when Mandani said we're gonna tax white neighborhoods,
Sure, just a couple of days ago. In fact, I'll post links. There are a bunch of them.
he said we're gonna tax white neighborhoods?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I wanna see.
I mean, all you have to do is kind of read the newspaper. Any news outlet covered it.
Hey, what did he say you taxing white neighborhoods for? What was the goal?
Yeah, Senator Chima here, he wants to know why you're gonna tax him. He's a white supremacist.
Don't start, Ann. Don't fucking start.
Well, maybe he's right.
I want to know, do anybody know the answer to, like what was this tax increase for?
Yeah,
Like,
to tax the rich. The neighborhoods that are white neighborhoods will have higher taxes.
that sounds about right.
Yeah, of course he would like that. So what he actually said was that the richer, whiter neighborhoods he would tax, which it's, first of all, anyone that thinks that you should target people that have more money to pay a bigger part of the bill, it doesn't understand how taxes are already working. I think this is a good reality check for people like Hakima that don't understand these things. In this country, at the federal level, the top 1% pay 46% of all of the income tax. That's the top 1% pay 46% of all of it. The top 10% pay 76%. The top 50% pay 97.7%, which essentially means the bottom 50% in this country only pay 2.3% of all federal income taxes. And yet you still have fucking weirdos that go out there saying that we need to tax the rich more. Listen, if the 1% is already paying 46% of all of the income taxes, I think that any time somebody proposes a tax break for them, I think they're doing the God's work. I think the Lord is smiling, saying, yes, you should not be. I don't know if I want to get too biblical here, but Jesus didn't like tax collectors. And so I think that for those of you that have opened your Bible recently, maybe if you haven't, knock the dust off of it and go see what Jesus said about the tax collectors. I think we need to give a break.
Hey, Roger, like, the fact is, like, in this economy, you gotta pay taxes, right? That's just a fact. And I'm with Jesus, like, fuck all taxes. Like, I wish we can go to none, but that's not a reality.
Well, then hold on.
Let me finish. Hear my point. You didn't hear my point, though. You didn't hear my point.
Go ahead.
Thank you so kindly, Mojo Jojo. But, like you saying, like, the top 50% pay 96% of the tax.
97.7.
Okay, so I mean the bottom 50% pay 2%, 2.5%.
2.3%.
Right. So and this is where America is at, right? With them numbers, we're right there, right? So in order for America to improve, who do you think taxes should be raised on? That although the bottom 50% only paying 2%, you think they should pay 10%? That you think taxes should be raised on the poor, not the billionaires? I mean, either taxes bogus either way. Hold on, taxes are bogus either way. So but where we at now, you still want them to raise taxes on the poor. Even though the rich are still getting richer, but you don't want them to pay more. You want the poor.
Wait, hold on. Can I respond to your question? So this is what I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see us recognize what the proper role of government are. And I don't think that when you look at things that are in the budget, things like gender studies in Pakistan, I think that we could agree that the things that we're asked to pay for is egregious. And in fact, all of that tax revenue, that's not enough for these big spenders. We collect $5 trillion in income tax, and then we go ahead and we spend $7 trillion. We have a $37 trillion debt. So the first thing that I'd like to see is I'd like to see the spending get under control. That's the first thing. The second thing that I would like to see is I would like to see a repeal of the 16th Amendment and get rid of the IRS. I would abolish the IRS. I think we should get rid of the 16th Amendment. We should then institute what's called the fair tax, which would eliminate the income tax, the Social Security tax, the Medicare tax, and replace it with a national sales tax. Then, if you spend money in America, then you'll pay taxes on it. You have some control. Yes, there's things that you have to buy, but you also have discretionary spending. It gives you some control. The way that we do it now, we give you no control. And then what we've done is we've overburdened the wealthiest people in this country. They, like I said, the top 1% pays 46% of the tax. The top 10% pays 76%. The top 50%. Hold on.
Real quick.
Why would you interrupt me? You just went on this whole rant about being interrupted.
You interrupted me 6 times though, but I'll read it.
Okay, so all right, so are we doing the interruptions or not? Go ahead and interrupt me. How about that? I'm going to be fair too.
All right. Let's be honest though. Like, we don't have a tax problem. Like they're tackling the problem from the wrong perspective. There's a spending problem. It's not a tax problem. So like, we can sit here like, if the government is addressing an issue, but they're going it about the wrong way. Now we're sitting here like dummies arguing about how they should tax. When that neither one of those are the issue. The issue is spending, and they are doing nothing about the spending, and that's what we should be talking about.
Well, I agree that the spending is the primary problem, but I want to go over to what Necro said in the chat where he's just incorrect. I can give you the facts that the top 1% of income earners in this country pay 46% of all of the income tax collected federally. So you're just factually incorrect. But I want to go back through these numbers because it's important. So if 50%, if the top 50% pay 97.7%, and you guys are saying that people with more money should pay more, I want to just illustrate this. We did this one night. Let's say 100 people went out to a dinner. Let's call it a fancy dinner. And let's say the 50 people with the highest incomes decided, hey, let's pick up 97.7% of this bill. And then they took the remaining bill and they handed it to the 50% of the people at the table that have the lowest income and said, look guys, good news. We've picked up 97.7% of this. Between the 50 of you, you only have to pay 2.3% of this. I would suggest that the people at that dinner would look to the 50 that paid the 97.7 and they would say, thank you for paying such a disproportionate part of this bill so I can eat a lot cheaper. What happens in this country when we do this with tax dollars is that
You have people in this country that are arguing that the people that only had to pay 2.3%, that somehow they're the ones getting fucked over, and somehow that the people that paid the 97.7%, somehow they're getting a free ride. Make it make
Spoken like a true black man.
Hey, we have a choice not to pay taxes, right?
If you want to spend some time in jail, you can.
Yeah, if you want to go out for 20
Wait,
years.
hold on. No, hold on. Let me just make this clear. You don't get sent to jail for not paying your taxes. You get sent to jail for lying about your taxes. And so, no, you don't go to jail for not paying them. What they'll do is they'll give you penalties, and then at some point, if you continue to play this game, they'll just garnish your wages. They do not throw you in jail in the United States of America for not paying your taxes. They just don't do it. It's untrue.
Facts.
They do if you evade.
Well, no, hold on. But what is evasion? Evasion is not paying them. You cannot pay them for a long time, and then when they catch up to you, and then they say, "Here's a bill," and then they give you a time limit to get it paid, and then if you don't do it, what they do is they garnish your wages. What they don't do, what they never do, is take you and put you in jail. Evasion is not paying them. Evasion is the act of lying and committing fraud to try to get out of not paying them. If you just simply honestly say, okay, I'm just not paying them, that is not something that will get you thrown in jail in any city, state in this country.
Roger, do you remember the guy that was on the app with us? Let me see. First season, second season, his last name was Schiff. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I know his dad's story very well.
Yeah. And why did his dad go to jail?
Because he evaded taxes.
How did he evade taxes?
Because he didn't report income.
Correct. So answering his question, if he refuses to pay taxes and he doesn't report income,
The reporting the income is the crime that got him in trouble.
I was just answering when he asked the question, if we choose not to pay taxes, if you are earning income and you refuse to report the income and you refuse to pay tax, you will have penalties.
But understand, Abby, let's not conflate this. And you know, I'm very, very well aware of the Schiff story. Schiff got himself, first of all, he got attention brought on himself, not for not paying taxes and not for the evasion of the taxes. The attention came when he wrote a book telling other people how they could get away with not paying their taxes. Where he made the mistake is when he lied about it. When he lied about it and then they were able to prove that he lied about it, that's where he got in trouble. If you're honest about your taxes, if you're honest about them and then you just refuse to pay them, they will never throw you into jail. What they will do after a certain amount of time, and it takes a long time for them to catch up with you, what they'll do is they'll eventually just garnish your wages, or if you had assets, they'll do you. Yeah.
But someone who chooses not to report, and maybe I'm reacting to his question, assuming that's what he meant.
Yeah. So again, the point is that you are legally responsible for reporting income. In fact, this is what got Al Capone. Al Capone, all of the stuff that he did in Chicago, what he eventually got caught up for was not reporting income. And so the tax evasion was not just that he didn't pay taxes, it was that, so the IRS has this interesting rule that not only are you supposed to report your legal gotten income, you are required by law to report your ill-gotten income. So here's the interesting thing. So let's say you're a pimp or a prostitute, right? And you're getting paid for something that's against the law. The IRS can come after you if they can prove that you received money in this criminal way. If you didn't report it, and if you didn't report that income, they can get you for tax evasion. And so again, I understand why people say that if you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail, because oftentimes the people that are lying about their taxes also don't pay them. Just understand that the reason that they're going to jail is because of the fraudulent report.
Basically, the government want in on the illegal money. They want to lock you up.
No, that's not. They don't want the money. What they want is they want an excuse to throw you in jail if you lie about it. It's another way that they can bring down criminal syndicates. It's actually a pretty interesting thing. You should go read the IRS code. The fact that it calls out that says that if you commit a crime, you're responsible for reporting that income. It's very
only a fool would report that income.
Well, actually, I would say this: only a fool would participate in activities that can get them thrown into jail.
The president and Congress does it all the time, participate in shit that should send them to jail, but yet they don't.
Give me an example, without just making some broad generalization.
What do you mean? I mean, maybe Nancy Pelosi was insider trading. Maybe she goes there.
But by definition, she did not commit insider trading.
I didn't hear that. Right, because they wrote laws to excuse it. Well, when a person writing laws, you can excuse your own crime.
Well,
that makes
yeah, but there's 435 people that have to pass that law, Akima. So was she ever indicted for anything?
We already know the answer to that.
Was she ever indicted?
I decided, I'm not defending Nancy Pelosi or none of that. I just use something that I know you conservatives always talk about. That's why I use Nancy Pelosi. I didn't go after the low-hanging fruit with Donald Trump. I used a liberal as a excuse. Now y'all defending it somehow. I've heard all of you.
Your words. You said committed crimes.
I've heard all of y'all
did not hear him say
illegal. Now you want to defend it for the
No, I don't. You said the words committed crimes. Am I the only one that heard him say committed crimes?
And I didn't
I'm asking you specifically, what was she indicted for? What crime was she indicted for?
She wasn't, Abby. You were way smarter than this to go after the argument and from the approach you're doing it. You're too smart for that.
What is he's trying to say? Just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it's right.
Well, hold on. But just because something is bad doesn't mean it should be illegal either. I mean, we know that alcohol is poisonous, but we learned our lesson that making it illegal is worse. And so these are concepts that I think that we need to get familiar with. It is a nation of laws, and so what defines a crime is whether or not, it's not whether or not something is good or bad, it's whether or not it's lawful or unlawful. I know that doesn't sit well with some people. Can I just, Jason, hold on, before I miss this moment. Laws are interesting, and I think the laws in this country, while some of them I think that we should look at changing, we can have that conversation. There are other places in the world that have even more unjust laws, like for those that are proposing Sharia law, for example. I'll just take this opportunity to tell the room that under Sharia law, it would be legal for you to fuck a 9-year-old girl. I think the laws in this country, as flawed as they are, I think they're better than laws elsewhere. And so, and again, for those that haven't heard, the Prophet Muhammad married a 6-year-old girl and had sex with her when she was 9. And you have 2 billion people around the world that thinks that that's okay. They come into this room all the time.
Hey, have you heard about Isaac marrying Rebecca when she was 3?
That's untrue.
That's Jewish tradition and source.
No,
it's actually untrue. You just don't know it.
Yes, it's true. Everyone knows it. I can bring the source.
No, everyone doesn't know it.
Well, y'all kicked the man off the stage.
Hold on. I didn't kick him off. I dropped him. What? Wait. Hold on. Listen. I'm going to bring him back up, and here's why. It is much better to let fools speak on this app and then to move them down. I like, if he's not interrupting and if he's not calling personal attacks on people, we should let him stay up here. Like he said some things that were untrue. Anybody that knows him knows that he's not the smartest guy in the world. But here's the thing. Why don't we just play with him for a little bit? Pamiri, can you answer a question for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Did the Prophet Muhammad, did he fuck a 9-year-old girl?
She didn't marry her because she was 9.
No, he married her when she was 6, but did he fuck her when she was 9?
First of all, no. Islam doesn't have 9 years old or 8 or 25 or 30. You will get married if she reaches the rate, masculinity, then you can marry her.
Wait, hold on. That's interesting that you want to marry a girl that's masculine. Actually,
You know exactly what he meant there,
hold on. I want to just make this clear. In 2025 in Iran, it is legal for everyone to marry a girl that's 13, and if you get permission from their father and go into their court, you can get permission to marry her at 8 years, 9 months.
If she passed that period of her adultery, whatever you call it, would start with M, yeah, you can marry her.
So I took a cheap shot. I apologize, Mary. It's only because we were in a room about a week and a half ago where I was the sole Jew among hundreds of people, and people were ganging up on me, and I think you took a bit of a shot, and so I had an opportunity to swing, so forgive me. I just had to do it.
No, it's okay, but what Pamiri's saying is that they don't tie it to age, they tie it to, reaching puberty. So basically, if a girl, and by the way, their definition is the minimum age in which somebody may experience a period, which in Iran, they define that as 8 years, 9 months. So in Iran, you can marry and fuck an 8-year-old girl if she's 8 years, 9 months, and you have the father's permission. This is what Islam teaches.
It used to be everywhere, even in Judaism.
It is, so I just put the biblical reference in English in the chat, but I'd like you to show me where in Bereshit and you can do it in Hebrew or in English, it says that she was 3 years old, because it doesn't. As a matter of fact, it says in Hebrew that she was, I'm trying to answer him, that it says that she was able to carry water, and Christian and Jewish scholars read the Old Testament, and interpret it that she was in her teens. But nowhere does it show me in the Hebrew, in the original verse, where it shows an age for her.
Okay, so do you know Rashi, right?
I absolutely do, but I asked you in the original text to show me there was one crazy rabbi who decided to interpret, and it's been debunked. So show me in the original text, either in Hebrew or in English, where it says that she was 3 years old.
First of all, is Rashi authentic in Jewish tradition?
It's many different thoughts that went into Rashi, and different rabbis from a million directions. And that's interpretation of one interpretation. I'm asking you, you're such a scholar, to go to the original verse, and I put the section where they describe her, and tell me where it shows an age.
Okay,
in Genesis or in Bereshit. You can do it in Hebrew or in English.
I will find it, put it in the chat. It's from Rabbi
right, I know exactly. And it was been debunked by both Jewish and Christian scholars. I'm asking you, again, to go to the original verse and show me. You can use King James, use whatever version you want of the actual Bible, and show me where it gives an age of Rebecca.
I will go to the Rabbi Shlomo.
No, see what I mean?
Yeah, hold on. Let me jump in here. Let me jump in here. So, no, the Bible does not give Rebecca's age. It does not do that. In fact,
If you want to pick one rabbi that has an interpretation, you'd have to balance that out with the majority of the scholars that study this stuff, which agree that most scholars agree that the age was somewhere between 14 to 18. Right? That's what the scholars say. But here's the more important part of this. I don't even care what that says, because these documents were written thousands of years ago. And what I do care about is in 2025, we know that Muslims still support the idea that you can go and fuck a child. There's not a Christian or a Jew that believes in this. And so let's just say, and it doesn't, but let's just say if Rebecca was 3, let's just say she was, which she wasn't. The scholars say that she was somewhere between 14 and 18, but let's say she was 3. The important question would still be, looking at that, do we think that's right or wrong? And Christians and Jews would say that's fucking disgusting if that were true. What the difference is that Muslims will defend this practice in 2025, and that is fucking foul.
Hey, Roger, can I ask a question? What should make you say you shouldn't fuck a child? I agree. What is a child? Is 16 a child?
In some states, it's not. It's the age majority. I'll answer you. And I'll also tell you that I'm answering your question.
I wasn't finished, though. I literally was not finished. Like, we know the answer. We know why it was a rhetorical question. Because, like, you're going to go to the law says in 16, 30 states says 16. It's perfectly fine. Without parent consent, a 16-year-old person can fuck an adult. Period. In 30 states. And it's okay because the law says, hold on, let me finish. The law says it's okay because a 16-year-old can fuck an adult. So let's say back in 600, the law says it's okay to fuck a 9-year-old. You okay. As long as the law says it, is that the standard? The law says slavery is okay. Is it okay?
Okay, I'm going to answer legally.
I'm not finished. Like, I'm not finished at all. Come on, y'all talk way more than me.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah, what you're forgetting.
You got this.
Guys, hold on. We're gonna let Hakima finish. Necro, look. Abby's trying to get in. Hakima's saying, "Let me finish," and then Necro, you're jumping in as if it's your fucking turn. Just mute the fuck up. Hakima, go ahead and finish your point, and then Abby's gonna respond.
And like my point for Abby.
Yes, the order is gonna be Hakima, Abby, and Necro.
I did like 30 seconds. Y'all get my point. The point is the law does not make it right. Times change. People do different shit over time. But don't act like, because 15 years ago somebody was fucking a 9-year-old, and we're so evolved now. And in this country, the great America, you can fuck a 16-year-old, and that's some huge fucking difference. Like just hold the same standard, the same hypocrisy. Don't be a hypocrite. Be the same person across the board.
Okay.
Don't try to demonize Islam when America is allowing shit right now in 2025. That's it.
So I'm going to answer you that the age of majority in the United States is 18, and in different states, you can, in some states, marry at 16 only if you have parental consent and judicial approval that they're emancipated. You cannot, you have, and in those states, you can go through it, with respect to child marriage, and where it's outlawed across the country if you have parental consent. And we're very careful about that in the United States. You raised about Israel, about Jews and Christians. In Israel, it's 18. Occasion, again, only with consent can it be lower at 16. But I think they changed the law there to be mandatory at 18 now.
But Abby, isn't that even that has a limit?
Wait, why, Sarah? Why? We had an order. Kima was gonna go. Abby was gonna go. Ann was gonna go. Necro was gonna go. If you're not one of those names, you're not in the order yet. But you can get in the queue. They get to answer.
Well, I'm just finished up that Roger's point is in Christian countries and the one Jewish country, the age of majority, and under old English law and common law that's followed, the age of majority is 18 with certain consent to be younger. We did have the issue in Utah many, many years ago, and they redefined it in that state. But majority in the United States is 8.
Can I rebut that? Just 20 seconds at most. But the fact what you're saying, there's 16 states. I mean, there's 30 states where the age consent is 16 without a parent. Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Connecticut, Georgia, Hawaii, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas City, Kansas, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan. The list goes on. There's 30 states where the age of consent without a parent is 16. Within America,
Put that in the chat, because I see that it's parental consent.
Well, hold on. I want to jump in.
It would have to be.
I'm gonna kick it over to Ann, but I just want to jump in with something. Hakima, here's the point that you're missing, because we could go back and we could look at, the early colonies and their laws, and it was much earlier age. The point that I think that the Muslims wave away is that we could look at these laws that were on the books in the U.S. Delaware was very young. If you go and look it up, So hold on, but here's the difference, Hakima, and this is where I would like for you to apply some some logic and reasoning to your argument, is that in 2025, when adults in America are talking about this, they say Delaware was foul. The UK in the 1700s, the 1600s, fucking foul. Right? And we could say this is wrong. If you were to ask me, I think the fucking age of consent should be 25. That's what I think. That's the whole the human brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. The weird thing about this, though, is that I can stand up here as an American and say that American law back then, man, what the fuck were these people thinking? That's just gross and detestable. But if you get a Muslim on the stage and you ask them about it, they will defend it, and they will say, but this culture did it and that culture did it. I don't give a fuck, to be quite honest, what happened 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago. I live in this time, and in this time, I believe that's foul, and anyone that believes that that's okay in 2025, I think they're foul.
Just really quick, I don't want to speak for all Jews and Christians, but I would assume that most of us, if not all, we didn't need any laws to tell us that that was wrong. Why? I mean, instinctively, like your conscience, like you just know. Like we didn't have to learn that. You just know that it's not right. So I don't know why. Like we don't need laws even for it to know that it's wrong. I don't know what the justification is for it. And how do you not consciously know that it's wrong?
Necro, go ahead.
Yeah, Kima, I mean, it seems to me like the point, like, you seem to not be understanding is the idea that, like, simply is that, in the 21st, in our current...
Hey, would y'all stop saying I don't understand? And that's really condescending. They say, you disagree with me. Don't tell me what I don't fucking understand. They say you disagree.
Like, well, if you understand, I don't see why you're referring to whataboutism by, like, talking about the problems in other cultures in order to justify what happened in 7th century, because you're not just defending, saying it was a different culture. You're saying that it was, God. You're saying, hold on a second, it's my turn to talk. So you're saying that simply that it was God who appointed his messenger and that he had sex with a 9-year-old. Like,
I said nothing like that. Nothing like that. I said nothing like that. What the fuck are you talking about?
That is what you believe, right? That is what most
No, that's not what I believe. So don't put nothing in my mouth and try to frame an argument around it. I never said nothing like that on the fucking stage. What are you saying that, bro?
So Muslims believe that Muhammad is the prophet. Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old. And so, this is the thing that simply why it is that we are criticizing it. You have people who are bound by what some guy in the 7th century said. And they are willing to defend his actions because of what he said, because they believe it was God who chose him. So it seems to be a point that you're not getting.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you one thing, Dr. Jordan, please. Please and thank you if I can. But for you to address me with that weird, awkward argument, putting words in my mouth, shows something about you. I'm not sure what it shows, but it shows something about you, and it's not positive. And I said none of the shit you said. So you really should like address me and the shit I'm saying, opposed to what Muslims may think. And you're not a Muslim.
I know that you are not willing.
You don't know nothing.
I know that you're not willing to. I know that you're not willing to address, how you feel about Muhammad, him having sex with a knife.
So hold on a second, bro. Hold on a second. What Muhammad did, we can separate we separate spiritual leaders from practice all the time. There are tons of religious leaders living today, rabbis, pastors, other preachers who have committed heinous crimes, right? That has very little to do with the religion itself. And to
Dr. Jordan, real quick, bro. Here's the problem, right? It would be one thing if Islam in 2025 said, hey, we think that's crazy, and that needs to change. But in modern day Islamic countries, they still, because of their teachings, they condone this practice. I haven't taken the time to study all of these things, but in Iran, the IRGC has allowed for you to marry a 13-year-old girl. And if you gain the permission of the father and go to court, you can get permission to marry a girl that is 8 years, 9 months. And so the problem isn't, to me, the problem isn't necessarily what was written 2,000 years ago. The problem is that in 2025, you got a bunch of fucking barbarian fucking pedophiles that are still fucking doing this.
Roger, do you know in Judaism in 2025, same thing what's in Iran? You are adult after 12. And you can marry.
And I understand, and that makes sense, Roger, and I appreciate the clarification because I'm only half listening. But I would say that, there are so many religious leaders out there. There are certain industries that draw, some of these dark personalities. And those include people who claim to be religious leaders, right? My own rabbi was censured by one of the rabbinical societies for having an affair with one of his congregants. And then I called him out on a minor detail for editing his own Wikipedia page. So I know that's not what you're talking about, but I had to throw that in there because I do have some disdain for religious leaders. I don't know that all of them, in fact, most of them are nearly as honest and empathic as they would like people to believe. They love to get in front of audiences. They have huge fucking egos, and no one can call them out because religion isn't even a pseudoscience. It can't even be tested under scientific investigation. So
actually, I want to address something in the chat. This person named Last First says Aisha was around 17 to 19 years old at the time of consummation. So that's incorrect. You're wrong about that. You're welcome to come up and argue about it. But we've done these rooms over the last few days, and we've had Muslims come in and tell you they would agree with the interpretation that the Quran, actually the Hadith, explained very specifically that she was 6 when they were married, when the Prophet married her, and she was 9 when the Prophet fucked her. Adams, do you want to tell what age she was when she was asked to clean the cum off the ground?
That's really disgusting.
Listen, I justify it as a different times, different customs.
I was 7 when I first masturbated.
We don't do it right now. In Iran, you married after 13. In Judaism, you can marry after 12.
No, you cannot.
2025. After your bar
I
mitzvah
don't know
or
where
whatever.
this dude is getting this from. I just put the law in Israel, the law in Israel in the chat. You have to be 18.
Not the Israel.
That, don't you get it? It's law.
Not Israel.
I know.
Judaism.
And you can't. So where are you living? If you're living in the United States, you've got to be 18 unless you have parental consent. You can go down in some states, and only some states, to 16 with either parental consent or court consent. So if you're religious, You live in the US, you can't. If you live in Israel, you cannot. So what planet are you talking about?
Okay, I'm gonna find you when they married at 12, and what are you gonna say?
Yeah, find it, because it doesn't exist, because you're making it up.
Hey, Abby,
And Hakima, you're wrong too. And I put it in the chat. I put every freaking state in the country in the chat. And you're wrong. You're just wrong.
And the fact that Hakima, you can't.
Hakima, you can't handle it.
Like, I'm literally talking to y'all.
Hakima, why are you, all your talking points anti-American? Why are you just chill for someone that is literally trolling America right now?
I don't care. Maybe I'm anti-American.
I don't want you to be.
Wait, hold on, guys. Hold on. Listen,
I can't get my point.
you will get your point across. I'm going to tell people, listen, if you disagree with Hakima, then the time to say that is after he's done speaking. This app has created a tool for you to learn when that is. When he's done speaking, just like when I'm about to be done speaking, I will place myself on mute. In the lower right-hand corner, a microphone with a line through it will reappear. That will show that I've placed myself on mute. When you see Hakima do that, then somebody can respond. Responding prior to that, then we have to say, why are you not listening to what he has to say? Because first of all, somebody has to complete their thought for you to determine whether you agree or disagree. You can't simply jump in mid-thought.
I would say what Pamiri said and what Abby conflated with like what Israel do. He said what Judaism do. He did not say what's legal in Israel. And what I'm reading according to the Talmud, girls can get married at 12 after the bat mitzvah, and boys get married at 13 after the bar mitzvah. That's according to Judaism and Talmudic law. So like, he's not saying Israel, he's talking about Judaism.
You don't practice it.
And if you just do the
don't practice that. Again, for the 50th time, since I'm one and I'm in the community, I am telling you, we don't practice that. And those that live in countries like the United States, Canada, England, France, or in Israel have an age of majority. Also, Hakima, you are absolutely dead wrong. There is not a state in the United States that allows you to be married under the age of 18 without either parental consent or court-ordered consent. I repeat, not one state. I put it in the chat, and you can try to argue, even Utah, you must have parental consent, which follows the law in our nation about the age of majority.
Hold on, Hakima, I'll give you a chance to respond. I just want to read some. I'm going to read two things. One is from the book of Purification. It says, I used to scrape the semen off the garment of the messenger of Allah, and he would go out and pray in it while there were still traces of water on it. I'll read the other one. The other one says, I used to wash the semen off the clothes of the prophet, and he used to go for prayers while water spots were still visible. That's the book of ablutions and the book of purification. So if anybody was curious about whether it was true that this was written, about the prophet, yes, this is what was written. So.
Yeah, let me help Abby out real quick. What you're saying, Abby, the age of marriage is 18, yes, facts. The age of consent for sex, like what you want to dodge that part. We talk about consensual sex. It's 16. In Georgia and many other states, the age of consent is 16. I'm not talking about marriage.
But you were talking about marriage before.
I clearly said the age of I said the age of consent. I literally used the word. The age of consent in America in 30 states is 16. I never said marriage. I said the age of consent is 16. And you want to compare it with marriage, but a woman or a man can have sex at 16 with an 80-year-old man if they want to in 30 states in America in 2025.
You specifically said marriage, and you said 30 states allow you to marry.
I said consent. Put the replays on, Rob. If I did, I made a mistake because we were talking about fucking. About Muhammad fucking that he said he married at 6, he fucked her at 9. That's what we were talking about. We talking about fucking.
There's a difference
not
between
marriage.
9 and 16?
Now you want to change the argument. I'm clarifying the point, so you want to add another argument in here.
Should children be having children that came?
They do it all the time.
Should they?
Yeah, if God allows them to, yeah, they should have a child.
Like, this is like.
Don't argue with God, not me.
This makes you the best argument against Islam. Like, when people defend this shit. Like, seriously.
Well, great. I would love to be the poster. I would love to be the poster child for Islam. I would hold that.
You seem to be making my arguments for me.
Nato, you'd be honest. You should talk about all religion, not just Islam.
I do. Do you want me to talk about?
Yeah, just don't say Islam. Say all the Abrahamic religions.
Bro, I can
go crazy.
Bro, I talked about my problems with Christianity. Like, that's where I grew up. So,
well, that is the foundation.
I've heard Necro talk about other religions.
This is the foundation of our civilization. Take it.
Bro, if you want to talk about me and problems I have with Christianity, I'm all for it, but we're talking about Islam right now.
I think Muhammad is Schrodinger's prophet. He's both a pedophile and the best of men. It's amazing.
May peace be upon him.
Police be upon your prophet.
That's actually funny. That's good.
How about this? Pamiri, do you denounce men having sexual intercourse with 9-year-old girls? Do you denounce that?
I personally wouldn't do that because different times, different social structure, completely different areas.
In 2025, do you denounce that behavior?
In 2025, I would understand if he marries her after she reaches the puberty age.
Hold on. Which could be as early as 8. So you're in support of.
In general, if she reach, I wouldn't do that. But if somebody do it, I don't know.
Wait, so you're saying, hold on, I just want to be clear. So you're saying that as soon as a girl reaches puberty and has her period, you would support, even in 2025, that an adult male could then have intercourse with that young woman?
If this is the custom, yeah, if that's
all
not
right,
how
look,
that's not a custom and law of the land, then no.
Well, okay, I'm glad you said that, because when I say that people say this, and that they believe this, they think that I'm exaggerating, and I'm glad that somebody's willing to say the quiet part out loud, that you guys support pedophilia. It's very important that people understand that a religion that has almost 2 billion people in it, in 2025 condones pedophilia. I think that's important. That's an important thing to
Yeah, people wonder why maternal mortality rate in Afghanistan is extremely high, because young girls should not be giving birth to fucking children.
It's not that I support. I just said I understand why they did what they did, because it was different customs, different social structures. Everything was different back in the days. Today, I don't do it. Like Prophet was riding camel. Today, any Muslim, nobody will ride camel to work. Everyone drives car. So you live by the times and by the customs.
Yeah, so it wasn't.
In favor of pedophilia, I have to admit. That whole camel thing is changing my mind on this matter.
Okay, guys, I just want to announce something here. Matt Cool went to set up another room. Maybe somebody could tell me once that's up. Maybe Ann, if you could let me know, and then we can get a link. I have to go off and do some things. I'm going to go celebrate this holiday the best way that I know how. I'm going to go eat Mexican food. And so that's what I'm going to do for a while. But the conversation is going to continue. Matt Cool is going to open up a room. So Ann, if you could let me know once that room's open, we'll pin that up here. We'll continue the conversation until that room opens, though.
I just want to ask you, Mojo, since you said you're going to get Mexican food on the 4th of July, does that mean that you agree that multiculturalism is part of American identity?
Yeah, I think you can participate in whatever culture you'd like. What I don't want, though, is for the dominant culture to be something that goes against the most important of American values, which is individual freedom. So, look, if you've got customs that say that we should eat corn tortillas versus eating white bread, I think that's fine. I would even sit at the table and enjoy with you. But when you start infringing on individual rights, then that's where you're gonna see the fighting side.
100%. Amen.
Roger, did they really cancel your fireworks? That's crazy.
Yeah, there was a last minute thing that said that, they got a report that said it was too dry and there was dangers and da-da-da-da-da. And so they literally canceled it at 10 a.m. this morning. So.
Yeah, I didn't know you lived in Illinois, Roger. You live in Illinois?
No.
That's kind of like Illinois, I understand. They are anti-fireworks. Like, it is funny that, like, they want to be the most oppressive, but they got signs that, like, with a $750 fine if you pop a firework. I'm like, this Independence Day. Like, y'all really want to be authoritarian on Independence Day. That shit is fascinating.
I will say one thing that red states get right is legalization of fireworks. You know,
We have them everywhere, but the best place to buy them are at the Indians. The Paiutes sell them cheap.
Yeah, you know what's happened in our state, Abby, is you can go to the native reservations. You can get amazing fireworks. You can get the launchers with like the professional grade fireworks. You can get Roman candles. You can get bricks of firecrackers. You can get all kinds of crazy shit at really good rates. But then the fucking police are right outside the reservation, and if you do anything, if you violate a single traffic law, they'll pull you over for the traffic law. Then they'll ask you a bunch of questions, and because you came from there, they'll look in your car, and if they see anything, so if you do go by them, you have to put them in your trunk, because if they see them, they then have probable cause to search the whole car, and they'll take them.
That's similar to Illinois, because we know I can drive 10 minutes and I'll be in Indiana. Talk about all the shit you named, the professional shit, shit you got to put in the ground, the launch, and all that shit. But the difference is, like, no police is bothering. They basically welcome you. Like, there's nobody in Illinois waiting for you to get there, nobody in Indiana waiting for you to leave. That's the only difference. But once you get home is where the problem comes. And once you pop it, then the local police come give you a fucking damn near $1,000 ticket, which is fucking ridiculous.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, if you live in like a rural area, they most likely will never see you doing that shit. And I mean, in my own state, I lived in like the suburban areas, and the most the police ever did was just come by and just said you can't do that, and then after that they literally wouldn't do anything. So
I set up a cake in my neighborhood. There was like 25 shots. Before the 25th shot got out, they pulled up on me. Right? Like they watched it. And they zeroed in, but before the 25th shot, he was right there. They gave me a warning. This your warning. The next one you pop off, you will get the fine. So, like, they literally, like, have nothing else better to do. It seems pretty pathetic, though. But, yeah, I guess that's the law, so I guess it makes sense.
yeah, I mean, like, I understand the concern mostly within the cities that it's a danger to everybody else. But, like, meanwhile, in states like Kansas, there's not a lot of people who live close to each other. So, I mean, there's not as much of a concern. So.
I'm in a rural. Sorry, Mother. I'm in a rural area too. Like I'm in the suburbs, and of course you don't know what Chicago suburbs look like, but it's damn near cornfields. Well, not damn near cornfields and trees everywhere. So it's not like no compact. I mean, not in Chicago, but Chicago, like I can go to Chicago and pop anything I want to. But they don't have the time or the resources to stop you. But in the suburbs, particularly when I'm at, this is where they're enforcing it.
Okay,
if I go further south to the rural area, then you can do it.
Guys, this conversation is going to get continued. There's a link up above. In about 60 seconds, I'm going to end this room. So if you want to continue this conversation, just click the link above. That room is already open, ready for you. They got spots for you. Cool. Okay, look, everyone's leaving. Come here, you want to click on that link above.
For the July, Abby.
Yeah.
No, I actually can get along with the Muslims on here that are like radical, because at least they're like upfront with their views. That just what's really hard is that the amount of lying, like concealing of how they actually feel. They're just a group that's very, very difficult to talk to.
Well, how about what I just went through? I cited every fucking state and their laws. There's not one state that allows you without parental consent under 18 to be married in the United States without parental consent. And this guy is on stage trying to justify the Muslim marriage laws and saying that we do this all over the U.S. when in fact we don't. Then I cited.
The thing is, though, is they have Muhammad is somebody who is like the perfect man, and every Muslim should strive to live like him. But this is my interpretation. He was like a warlord. He took quote unquote wives, really kidnapped them, made them slaves, raped them. He was just a rather disgusting person. There's no way you could really spin that in a way that it's I don't know, I would feel okay with that religion.
Yeah, I was getting uncomfortable around the Muslims. Like even like I'm in Europe right now and I'm watching them, like there's so many of them. And I'm like, this could be the future of America if we allow Muslim migration to continue at these levels. Like, it's disgusting. Like I see them walking around with their little hijabs, and I'm just like, we're just trying to Western country, but take them.
I think they're gonna have a civil, I would say Europe's probably gonna have, I guess, like wide scale, like civil unrest, and it will lead to a lot of violence, like sometime in the future. Those two populations, the Muslim population there and the Europeans, are not gonna. Neither of them are going to be able to get along with each other or feel like they can exist under the other's rule.
What mother? Why do you care if someone's wearing a hijab? As long as they're not doing anything, why do you care?
It's a hijab. They're not assimilating to Western cultures and Western values. You move to a Western nation, right? If you want to continue your little terrorist mindset, you should stay in the Middle East.
In America, there should be one clear distinction. Just like heads